I was billed when I was first asked to do this as a narrator, which I thought quite fun to be a narrator of a conference as opposed to just the facilitator. So I'm going to feed back to you a few things that I've observed during the morning and a few observations. First is a nice quote of mine when there's so much impatience around for change. Elephants don't gallop. You have created a complicated elephant in terms of the groups, the subgroups, the areas, the 8 local partnerships to be set up, the cross-sectoral arrangements and so forth. And that's good and proper, but the speed of decision-making and the speed of implementation is going to be the challenge to meet that aspiration and that impatience, but also to bring everyone with you in the process. But I think you're well placed because you have people at the heart of it. And for too long, planning was seen as something done by the boffins, informed by the economists and people like Neil, written and drafted and signed off by the honourable civil servants like Joe, but without the engagement with the people. And you have demonstrated in this process the very significant engagement that you've been through, keeping people at the heart. And even in this morning's demonstration, it hasn't been top-down description. You have had people talking and reflecting. The other thing that I think you're particularly good at in this city is partnerships. And again, we talk about partnerships very loosely. It's become a cliche. Oh, we need a partnership, we'll have a partnership. But what does it mean unless it genuinely evens out the power imbalances? Because a lot of partnerships are convened by the powerful party looking for the fig leaf of community or charity or local people's engagement. But I think what you've done in terms of cross-sectoral, often there's tension between the private sector and the public sector and the third sector. But I think you've done that in this city politically. You've done it in terms of the peace process. You've done it in terms of the parades issue. You've done it on the One Plan. And I think that creates a very solid base. You've done it across the river and you've done it across the border. Interestingly, if I might make an observation, there hasn't been much talk about cross-border cooperation or collaboration this morning. Now, either that means you do it so well and it's perfectly natural, and half of you live across the border and come to and fro with ease, or it might be one of those things, like I warned earlier, the equality agenda cannot be let drift. You know, it needs constant vigilance, and so does your cross-border activity on this island, because so many issues don't recognise the jurisdictional border. It's interesting, I've noticed a tweet there saying that your CP, your hashtag, is now trending across the UK. So well done, you guys, for all your tweets and retweets. But it's trending across the UK. Now, there's another jurisdictional imposition when the focus for you people, I know, is about this city across the river and across the border and the northwest and the region and on this island. And yet the accidental creation of those borders can sometimes get in the way of that. Participation, I was asking Kira about participation on the panel we had, because participation isn't an easy thing. We can't command it. You can't command people, as she said, to turn up. They might come to the first meeting because they want to see what's going on, but you can't order them to come to the second, third, fourth. And that is a jewel that you should treasure. And that's partly a tradition of this city, and it's partly the way that the new council has set its priorities. And I think Neil was right, some of your competitors, rivals, partners in the other 10 councils, and they are all of those things, sometimes competing for investment or whatever and resources, sometimes partners and sometimes collaborators that you'll team up with. But some of them have not been as successful at creating the more genuine sense of participation. And that's something that I notice. I chair a body called the Consultation Institute, which studies public consultation across the UK and Ireland, across Britain and Ireland. And I noticed that here, our sense of a good public consultation is very different from elsewhere. Where elsewhere they're looking, have we reached 5%? Have we got enough at the public meeting not to be embarrassed? Have we got enough to get away with the audit people not saying we've wasted money searching for responses? And we've got a very different relationship with the consultation process that, again, we lose at our peril if we lose touch with it, if we take it for granted, if we let it get rusty. And that requires circling back on what are your objectives, outcomes that you want to achieve, who are the people that you want to engage, what are the processes by which you will best engage them and encourage them to take part, and excite them and lift them, and do things like we've been doing here today with music and song. And I know that there's a choir getting ready to end our session this morning. But finally, what I also notice when I come up here is the passion for life that there is in this city and the surrounding area. And I know that you're binding in Strabane and the rural areas too, to ensure that that is spread. And it's a genuine passion. I noticed it when I walked around the walls at 8 o'clock this morning and the city was just waking up. You know, there were people talking to each other, there were people singing, there were people saying hello to me and they didn't know me. There was a sense of belonging and a sense of engagement and passion, and I think that that is something you do really well. Community planning is tough. There are very few places can genuinely say they've got it right, but I've certainly been impressed at what I've heard today and what I know you have been doing in those endless sessions and groups. So I'm also here to wish you luck in that process. And to keep that passion for doing stuff that you love doing, for the place that you love so well, and for the future that you know can be better than the past. With that, I'll close my remarks and I'll ask the Mayor again to close the session off from the interesting introduction she gave a couple of hours ago to close it down. And then we will have the junior choir will give us some more song. There'll be lunch outside. There's evaluation forms in your packs, and organisers always want to get the tick box feedback. It's a form of engagement. It's what we call a snapshot of engagement, because you can't actually argue on a tick box form, but we hope that you'll scribble down your thoughts and views, and those will be noted and appreciated, I'm sure. So back to the Mayor. Councillor, you're welcome.
Okay, so I'm really not going to keep you too long. Just once again to say thank you all for attending. But there is a few observations I do want to make, and I'll make them as brief as I can. Just for yourself, Joe, I could make your job a whole lot easier. We'll simply hand you our community plan, and today your job's done. And I'm sure our colleagues from the other 10 districts won't mind. In terms of the comments that were made in relation to our relationship with Donegal, I can just assure you and give you a commitment here today that the relationships that we have with Donegal County Council are at the strongest that they've ever been. And indeed, our chief executives meet very regularly. And thankfully, this community plan has been done in line with the new corporate plan that is happening currently in Donegal, and we're very familiar with each other's objectives, but just to reinforce the commitment that engagement is continuing. And just, you made the point there at the end of your presentation in relation to the city and where the city's at. And I think it's fair to say that we are hungry for change, but you know what? We're up for that change. And I think today has once again proven that we're ready and willing to embrace the change that is in front of us. So for all of you who came here this morning thinking the job was done, you'll clearly see that that's not the case, but we have come a hell of a lot forward over the past number of months, but there's a huge amount of work that we need to continue to engage and to ensure that this community plan is as successful as it can be. And for me, particularly, the next step, the local area plans, is probably the most exciting aspect of the entire plan. So I want to once again encourage yourselves, but I suppose encourage yourselves to register on the Derry and Strabane website to be part of the local plans. But more than yourselves, I think it's time that we go even further down, and as much as we have engaged our residents to date, it is vitally important when we are doing our area plans that residents are at the core of the area plans. So it's the job of each and every single person here today to ensure that your residents and your citizens in your local area are aware that the local area planning process will begin. And if I could just point you in the direction of our website, as I say, to express an interest in being part of that process. So folks, I hope you have found this morning informative, and thank you very much for your attention. I know it's always difficult to get 3 or 4 months' works down to 2 hours of a plenary session, but I think you'll agree that we've tried our best and we've given you a snapshot of where we're at. But it's by no means the end game, and I'm sure we'll meet again in a plenary such as this if we don't meet so beforehand in local area planning. So folks, enjoy the choir, and lunch will be served very quickly. So, Gramina Melga.